Thank you for watching episode 17 of the Rare Network podcast. Today's episode is about to be a banger. We had Zach on from Coordinape. If you like network states, if you're interested in work from anywhere, how to get compensated, how to work on the internet, how to work for DOWs, and how you're going to get compensated for that and build reputation, then this is the podcast for you. I was super interested in the network state. I met Zach at the Network State Conference in Amsterdam. We kicked it off and we had him here on the podcast. I think you're going to really love to learn about what they're doing at Coordinape. Check it out. Let's get right into it. Here we are, episode 17, the first one of 2024. We've got Zach here with Coordinape. Really happy to have you on the first podcast of 2024. Zach, how's it going today?
It's going fantastic, man. It's great to be here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks for coming on board. I would love to start with, before we dive into Coordinape and co-links and all the amazing stuff you're doing today, I'd love to start with an introduction, kind of your background, growing up a little bit, education level, if you would, whatever you're willing to share. Would love to introduce the audience to yourself first.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon. Spent a lot of time out in nature, and that really has informed like kind of my path and career trajectory. Um, uh, I was sort of part of the Earth First forest activist crew in college. Um, then realized like, okay, activism is really necessary, but also sort of limited in what it can accomplish. And so instead, I decided I'm just gonna drop out of the world entirely. I went traveling for essentially 10 years. I lived in Japan for several years, working in a high school there, and then went to the South Pacific, studied permaculture, and spent a couple of years just traveling and working on farms. Kind of had a dream of living on my own off the grid permaculture, you know, enclave where I didn't have to deal with the capitalist system. And and through those experiences, really, one of the principles of permaculture is the problem is the solution. So I thought, no, I'm gonna go change things from the inside. I went to business school, did an MBA and also a master's in sustainability over in Sweden, and really, then spent several years working with Fortune 50 companies around sustainability sort of strategy and programming. Um, Through those experiences, working with some very smart and well-intentioned global companies, uh, I started to see like, are we really being sustainable, or are we actually just sharpening the blades on the machine? If I'm working for huge international agriculture conglomerates that are reducing water use by 40%, isn't that just making like their business model of global monocropping like more
More
successful? But
profitable?
I right, it was really on the sort of the less bad trajectory instead of like what's actually good. um, Through all those experiences, I became really fascinated with just collaboration. I saw like sort of what is it going to take to create some more regenerative systems, and it takes deep collaboration, and we're so bad at it. There's a lot of science out there on what makes collaboration work, and it seems like I was never taught any of this stuff. So that led me to co-found a consultancy called Converge, where we really focused on networks, and sort of as you move from a pyramid hierarchical structure, how do you move into more of a network structure? How do networks work? How do you make decisions in a network? How do you make priorities in a network? All these kind of things. How do you build trust first and foremost in a network? And it was that work in Converge for 10 years that led me to when I discovered DAOs in 2021. Just all sorts of light bulbs went off. DAOs being decentralized autonomous organizations, and sort of crypto and Web3 and this whole world of peer-to-peer global collaboration. It's just incredibly exciting.
So in the chicken or egg question, which came first? Coordinape and how to coordinate came before finding Web3, or how did that come around? Like you were already working in how do
Well,
people socially coordinate and found DAOs. How did you kind of
yeah.
which came first?
So I, I mean, I would say the collaboration and coordination definitely came first at
Mhm.
Converge. What we were doing essentially, what I would say now is we were creating sort of IRL DAOs. So we had a project in the Santa Cruz Mountains where you have 500,000 acres of redwoods and 40 different organizations that are all landholders and sort of stakeholders in this. And how do you bring them together with all of their different worldviews and priorities and business goals and start to identify where are the leverage points where we can actually work together? Where are the win-wins, both for stewardship and for economic economic incentives, etc. So that's really like bringing diverse stakeholders together to get something done, sort of at the heart of our work around impact networks. And also the way that we structured Converge was as a network, and we didn't have any employees. There was no payroll. We were all independent consultants who would come together, sort of in different constellations according to the project. And when we would invoice a client, we would just put the money in the middle of the table and talk about like who should get what, based on what we've done, and what's the fair way to divide this up. And when everyone's like, okay, this feels good, high five, and that's the distribution. And that's essentially what Coordinape is the attempt to sort of do that at a bigger scale, and with distributed teams. So that came first. And it was really when I discovered DAO, started getting involved with Yearn Finance, and saw this need they have of how do we reward contributors without having this centralized sort of granting body. Um, Coordinate sort of evolved out of that.
That is really cool. I didn't know that backstory and really love that. Like I was wondering kind of what came first and how you got into Web3 and how did you find like Yearn and DeFi? Because that's pretty, deep down the rabbit hole for most folks when they get into crypto to get that far into Yearn and things like that. And I guess the way I first found Coordinape was working with Alchemix and their community newsletter. Coordinape was how we
Hmm.
kind of decided exactly that, like as a community who put into the newsletter who wrote what articles and what percentage of the newsletter did they do. We used Coordinate to kind of divvy up what the Alchemix treasury was willing to give for that. So it was really cool. How did you like kind of get that deep down the rabbit hole so quickly to find like Yearn and DAOs and stuff like that? Because I feel like most don't get that far.
Yeah, it was pure luck actually. It was a friend of mine, actually, going back. He's been a sort of crypto, deep in crypto since 2013. There's a bit of a whale swimming around the space, and I got put in touch with him because of our network work, and he was thinking about sort of proto network state ideas. And so I was advising him, and he set up a he's like, okay, we'll set up a Discord. I'm like, what's a Discord? Um, but it was in this Discord I started chatting with someone named Tracheopteryx, who is this dinosaur bird, uh, who was later my co-founder of Coordinate. And so he was deeply involved in Yearn. What was funny is that Trake and I knew each other and had worked on a project together several years back, and I didn't know this when I was chatting with him. So I'm chatting, with this anon guy in Discord. I'm like, man, we really vibe. Like, this guy is picking up what I'm laying down, and vice versa. This is great. And it was like a month later that we made the connection. It's like, wait, you're Tracheopteryx? This is crazy. It was wild. But so yeah, he was working deep in Yearn as part of that original core team, thinking about governance and structure and culture and all those things. We shared a lot of mutual interests, and so I started doing some of that work at Yearn too. Like writing a blue pill was something that I was deeply involved in. If you're familiar with that, sort of the Yearn manifesto. Um, so I guess the answer is, how did I get involved so quick? It was like it was pure luck and who you know, um, and the fact that I had a strong interest in some of the, the
The
issues
same
that
ethos.
Yearn was trying to work on as well.
That makes a lot of sense. And you guys work with a lot of organizations like, Web 2 and Web 3. I'd love to kind of, you brought up to me in a meeting like iFood. How's that worked with Coordinape and things like that? Are they using crypto rails to pay folks out, or how, when Web 2 folks use Coordinape, what does that look like?
So a lot of the Web 2 folks, and just for the listeners, iFood is a massive company in Brazil. They're sort of the DoorDash of Brazil, and having ambitions to be a lot more. But a couple of guys in their finance team were also, degens by night, and I think through Bankless had discovered Coordinape and convinced the CFO at iFood that this was a worthwhile experiment to try. Turns out that the CEO and CFO of this company are extremely forward thinking and really pushing innovation, and so they were open to it. And the way it works, essentially, the first epic they did, they manually onboarded 300 people in the finance department onto MetaMask. They essentially became like, took on another full-time job of being like Web3 tech support for all these folks, getting them a wallet, how to store your phrases, etc. Um, we added functionality so that now you can take part in a Coordinape circle just with an email, which they appreciated. And so, now as they've expanded the use of Coordinape there, a lot of people are just using an email. And the way it looks for them, originally when we created Coordinape, again, it was a way to really pay people, right? It was quite focused just on sharing resources. What we found is that a lot of teams now will use it just as to track contribution, either for later compensation. So seeing a lot of use from early stage teams who want to, may have a token someday, may get investment someday, and this is just a way to sort of keep track of who's contributing, so that those conversations later are smoother. And then reputation, right? And this is the way that iFood is using it, is really as a way to say thanks, show gratitude, like pump people up that are going above and beyond. And instead of distributing money, iFood has a really novel program where you get these tokens that are called salt, since they're a food company, and you can use salt to buy like professional development experiences. So like you can bid on like having lunch with the CEO or attending a board meeting with the CFO. There's like public speaking classes with the CMO, for example. So and they've encouraged, like I just saw on their marketplace, there's a guy who teaches, like how to cook a traditional Brazilian dish, and some employees signed up for that. So they're like starting to just have fun with it. But really, it's a way to gives people meaningful experiences that aren't necessarily money, right? And this is a problem so many companies that we're talking to have, which is sort of this big bucket of employee engagement, performance management, and how do you get people engaged? How do you get them to go above and beyond without sort of offering them a Starbucks gift card, or more money? How do you tap into that deeper intrinsic motivation? And a lot of it is through these peer rewards, being recognized, being appreciated, is really a core need that people have, and that's kind of how we tried to build Coordinate, is to really have it be focused on thanks, appreciation, gratitude, and it happens to have some incentive tied to it.
That makes a lot of sense now that I look back at using it, it really did kind of be like a bonding moment where everybody could kind of congratulate each other on a job well done when we had finished an email,
Hmm.
and kind of like go back and reflect for a minute and be like, hey, thanks for writing that article. That was amazing. That was really a great article. Or thanks for doing that artwork for the cover. This email, like that was amazing. Like would love for you to have some shares of the reward and things like that. And even if it wasn't monetary, the like group building of it, just kind of the structure of going through that over and over again was a great like bonding experience, I think, for the team. And definitely you're reminding me of that and something I want to continue to use now that our business is growing. It's just not myself and a co-founder now that we do have our first employees. This is something that we can use for team building and kind of to reward folks in a social way, and let everybody on the team recognize hard work together, not just from like a top-down approach, from us rewarding people, if that makes sense.
Oh, I
Hopefully I'm
mean, 100%. I often say like the conversation is more valuable than the allocation. So it's like I get my give, and there might be some incentive or reward attached to it. But it's really that appreciation and recognition from my peers. And it's really valuable to have sort of a shared display to talk about, how are we doing? To look at, hey, here's everyone's contributions. Okay, they're appreciating it. Someone might be like, I actually thought what I was doing was a lot more valuable than that. I thought I was going to get more. Okay, well, let's talk about that. We definitely know that one of the highest predictors of a successful team is the ability to have conflict and hard conversations. And so this can also be, for us at Converge, we called it, really, it was part of our team hygiene, to have hard conversations. And it makes it a lot easier to do when there's real money, real incentives on the line, to talk about, like, what do people do that really adds to the team? What do they do that maybe they think adds that doesn't add as much? And to get through those conversations and have them, the team will come out, even stronger.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I like that. I definitely like kind of fall in the same ethos of tough conversations need to definitely be had, and it seems like this is a great way to kind of bring them forward, to a group in a group setting, kind of in a way where that
Hmm.
conversation gets kicked off in a lighter way. Um, definitely,
Yeah,
definitely like that a
100%.
lot. You guys, how many organizations are using Coordinape? And is there like a breakdown between Web 2 and Web 3? Do you look at it that way at all? Or
Uh, no, because the vast majority are still definitely Web3. I
3?
would say we have a handful of Web2 companies that are starting to experiment with it. Um, Definitely none as large or as prominent as iFood, but we've had some, agencies are using it, because it really lends itself to the way that they structure accounts, and the way that they structure teams. They're already sort of in these circle formations. We have. I was just talking to a guy over in Europe who has, I think, like an 11-person, software development company, very focused on Web 2, but we sort of have some overlap with people who are in the future of work, teal organizations, deliberately developmental organizations, if anyone's familiar with these kind of terms. Essentially new ways of structuring things beyond sort of the traditional just pyramid hierarchy. But I would say that, the vast majority of our users are people that come out of the Web3 space, the DAO space, um,
I see
just
some
because,
amazing
that
names.
that's what it was built for, is for decentralized teams, um, and built on Web3 rails. So, those are the people we've primarily, we've never really done marketing per se. It's been a lot of word of mouth. And so, yeah, that's something we're thinking a lot about is, what are some ways that we can sort of abstract away some of the Web3 elements and just really get people to, that core value proposition of engaging the folks that are working with you, letting them appreciate each other, pushing decisions to the edges, where they're being made, all that good stuff.
I love that, and I see some amazing names on your website, from Alchemix to Bankless on here, and Metacartel, and City DAO, and Nouns DAO is on here. So love like all these names. and stuff like that. Getting into the like Web3 side of things, like how does a group like Bankless use it like as a media company, let's say? How are they using Coordinate?
Yeah, so Bankless is one of our earliest and biggest users, and they've run a lot of different experiments, including I think at one point they had like a 350 person circle that they were
Oh,
doing allocations through. But because from my understanding, they have people working on different education initiatives. They have people working on different media and production initiatives, and so the way that Coordinape is structured, where you have an organization level, so that would be like Bankless, and then you have circles within it that pulls from that larger membership, right? So I could be in the newsletter circle and also the podcast circle, or I might be in the education and content circle. And so essentially, it allows you to go work on the things that you're interested in, go make the contributions you're keen to make, and your peers, who you're collaborating with, will recognize that. And when you knock it out of the park, especially consistently, you'll get rewarded for that, by your peers, and also, obviously by leadership. People from the core team are in circles as well. Um, but it's really sort of changing the idea of you're going to interview me and hire me, and we're both making commitments toward what's going to happen. And it's a bit of a switch in that DAOs in general operate this way, and Coordinate certainly helps, where I've done the thing already. We just had the Optimism retroactive public goods funding round, and I think this is a really ingenious way of paying people for the good they've already done, instead of paying them for the good that you want them to do. It really unlocks a lot of innovation when people can go try something permissionlessly, and then you see the results, and when they're good, you get rewarded for it. This is a lot different than a lot of people's corporate experience of, hey, I have a great idea. Okay, let me see if my manager can get me some time to present the VP so that they can run it up the flagpole, and it's just like, never mind. It's like, I just wanted to try this thing. And so, I think that there's a lot of good things, good pros of DAOs and things that they can do really well that are harder for traditional orgs to do, and vice versa. I'm not necessarily everything has to be a DAO maxi by any stretch, but I do think that innovation, and just allowing people to make the contributions they want to make is one of the superpowers of DAOs, and I think that's what will be the unlock to DAOs growing
I kind of
pretty
love that.
significantly.
Yeah, I love that. And like relating it to our own business, like Rare Network trying to go, bro, we've had like a really hard time finding video editors or graphic designers. A lot of people want to get paid to do the job, but they don't necessarily, they just want to get paid for a job. They want to do the bare minimum. They don't necessarily want to
Hmm.
be involved and like want to do it. And I've found our best hires so far have come from community members that put in time and want to be around and want to contribute first, and they contribute something to us and we go, hey, this is working and we need more of it. Can we pay you for your time and your efforts that you've done now? And I feel like this is a great way to kind of start to include the community. This is all like clicking in my brain as we have this conversation and discuss what Bankless uses it for, is like, hey, the community can come in and join a circle of like, hey, we need graphic designers or video editors, or we need somebody to write blog posts. You can come in and kind of write a blog post and be rewarded for that and kind of build up reputation, which I think kind of goes into co-link next. But that's
Right.
kind of like a more of a softer way to hire onto the team and finding people that really align with the mission than just going out and, like you're saying, like interview, hire, start paying somebody, and hopefully the work aligns with their mission, their personal mission and goals, which often
Right.
it doesn't. It's somebody looking just for a job and pay, which is different from what
Mhm.
I think we're looking to hire as an organization, if that makes sense.
100%. And it's well documented sort of the interviewing and doing the job are entirely different skill sets. And just because you're good at one doesn't necessarily mean you're good at the other. Um, there's a very valid criticism that's like, oh, so you're asking people to work for free and just trust that they're going to get paid. Um, I mean, yes, that's one way to look at it. But another one is you're allowing them to sort of do something they're passionate about, to show their skills. They will get rewarded for it. And then also, like, that just opens new opportunities. There was a period of time where the sort of community contributors circle at Yearn was effectively their hiring funnel, because people show up, rock it again, and then it's like, wow, give them something else to do. I mean, this is a pretty standard, playbook for sort of any human organization. Is like, when people successively are able to take on stuff, you give them more stuff. But it's a very organic way of doing it, and like you said, it sort of allows mutual discovery, for both the people and the org or the community. Like, is this, this is vibing? Okay, great. Let's make it more formal eventually, um, because certainly
Yeah.
people obviously have needs to get paid, but it just allows for that also. What we've seen. And I should really collect more of these anecdotal examples because they're so cool. Of when you may be, for example, looking for a graphic designer and an editor, and you know the stuff you need, but maybe you never thought about someone doing a pop-up, a pop-up panel somewhere at another conference, and they just had this cool idea and they did it, and then they're like, hey, I did this thing, right? And now you're like, wow, that's so awesome. And then Coordinate, you can give and give them appreciation. But again, that's the power of DAOs, is that it's sort of open for people to try stuff. And if you try it and it falls flat, like, that's good learning too. Maybe even that's rewarded. It's like, thanks for running such a wild experiment. But it really frees people to follow what that passion and what their skill set is, which I think ultimately will be a huge unlock for
I love
organizations.
that. I can't say it enough. I keep saying I love that, but my wheels are turning and like how we can use it at Rare Network. And I have so
Mhm,
many ideas popping up. So we'll definitely be setting up a coordinate for the business after this. I want to die and like going back to like people working for free, and I get that argument a little bit. I guess I must be getting old, but my first internships were unpaid. And a lot of
mhm,
things I've done like in life to like learn a trade, even construction when I was a teenager. I wanted to learn how to rehab houses. I went and worked with a guy rehabbing houses and like got paid absolutely
mhm,
nothing at first, sweeping the floor, and finally got to a point where I was doing something useful and got paid to do it. I think there's kind of a little bit of, I call it life's tuition, that people need to learn to pay
mhm,
when entering a new trade. You kind of have to put in the work and the hours and learn a little bit to get in there. And then, yeah, there is a mutual side of on our end, like always compensating folks for
mhm.
those that do put in the work and provide something of value to the group. I want to dive into CoLink. Big announcement you guys made in December. What is CoLink?
Colinks is it's a new product aside from the gift circle, that's really a social and professional network. And the idea is that it's a place where you can network and find folks who are into the same things as you. You can find opportunities to contribute to organizations or DAOs, and do so in a decentralized way. So think of it as sort of a mashup right now between Twitter and LinkedIn. Um, and and we've used this mechanism of a bonding curve. So you actually buy links to other people, and what that does is it allows people who are thought leaders or established in the field to really have a dedicated audience that has paid to connect to them, um, and and share things there. They can get feedback from a very engaged audience, and likewise, it allows people who are just establishing themselves and starting out either in their career or in Web3, to sort of have a much more direct route to some of these folks who are well established, and also just find other people who share interests. Um, and we're introducing functionality now also to start to be able to vouch for people's reputation, but in a in a peer-to-peer way, where you kind of have in LinkedIn, for example, you have endorsements, but they're kind of watered down. They're somewhat meaningless. I have people that have vouched for me for things that I don't even know. It's like I don't know this person, and I don't know why they're vouching that I'm good at marketing. Whereas in colinks, you have people who you can see sort of where their reputation comes from on chain and why they're vouching for you. And so it's a much more accurate, not perfectly accurate, but much more accurate sort of source of truth to start to understand what are the kinds of things people have been doing. Being able to find people to search and say, I want to know someone who's, really into graphic design that also has a POAP from ETH Denver for the last 2 years. So I can, know who should I meet at ETH Denver this year if I'm looking for graphic designers, that kind of functionality. So we're really trying to build out, uh, build out a social network that has, a lot more, I guess, validity and people who are really putting attention into who am I connecting with and what am I trying to get done.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was talking with the team, just researching a little bit for the podcast, and I laughed a little bit there because that's exactly how I explained it to the team. I was like, I think if I have this right, it's a Twitter and LinkedIn combined. And it's I was like, so if I were to use this, if we needed a developer, because there's so many people that come at us like, hey, I can develop on Web3, it would be nice to go on there and
Right.
actually on-chain verify, like, hey, this person has worked with so and so, this group, and they've done development work here, and get a real background, because even people can fake a LinkedIn background and what they put on there. It doesn't
Oh, a
necessarily
hundred
get
percent.
verified. So to get that
Yeah.
on chain and to have you're using a soulbound NFT, is that correct? Kind of record all of it. Can you go into a little bit about that? I think it's amazing.
Yeah. So as part of Coordinape, we created COSOL. And that is a way to take the give from your circle on chain. So as people basically attest to, yes, that created value, that gets updated every month. And so if you go to my COSOL, you'll see all the different organizations I've been a part of. You'll see all of the different circles that I've been a part of, and the give that I've received. Right. So I could say like, oh yeah, I was a contributor at Yearn, and you can actually go to my COSOL and see like, oh wow, over 13 epics, he received 1,400 give. Like, okay, there's probably some value being added there, right? That's a lot harder to fake versus I actually did. I set up my LinkedIn to prove this point, to show my MBA from Harvard and my engineering degree from Stanford and my years at Google. And it was like, sure, you can go verify that if you want to, but at first glance, it's like, we don't know. And so the idea behind a COSOL is really that it's using all of those on-chain things to show. And on our roadmap, some of the stuff we're really excited about is to start also having um, give in colinks so that when somebody posts something or shows what they've done, I can actually just give to them there to increase their reputation. And someone posts an article and like that was awesome. Um, I can give them give, and then we're actually working on an algorithm so that if I give and say, oh man, Ren, amazing Solidity developer, that'll give you a certain amount of rep. But if Vitalik also says the same thing, that rep is going to be worth a lot more. So we're looking at how do you do actually rep weighted give, so
Wow.
that the reputation of the people that are vouching for you influences sort of what that rep means for you. um, and certainly not, our ambition is not to be sort of the final source of truth, obviously, in sort of reputation in Web3, but be like a really important piece of that, to say, where can people start to accrue this reputation. Like you were saying earlier, I also was the beneficiary of many free internships, and a mentor of mine used to say, like, well, there's many forms of currency, and what we hope that Colinks and Coordinape unlocks is, on one hand, you could say, oh, I was working for free because I went and did this project. On the other hand, you could say, like, wow, I'm getting, this audience, I'm getting reputation from people I really respect and admire in the space because I did something, and they give me give for it. They give me points, and they say, like, this was awesome. Over the long term, that's going to be far more valuable than a $500 bounty to go work on something.
Yeah.
So we hope that this helps people unlock the chance to really, share what their gifts are and get recognized for it, and have that provable, so that they can take it with them and show people, like, hey, these are the kinds of value that I'm adding.
I like that a lot. Like, I'm gonna definitely have to go sign up for a co-link today. I think it's really important to like build that reputation, and I think this solves a big issue with like social media today, whether it be Twitter or LinkedIn or anywhere else. I think LinkedIn is one of the better spots because it's so business oriented and people aren't as like
Hmm.
anon. And I think reputation's really important to kind of like weed out toxicity and, some of the scamminess. I get it. Some people can be anonymous. I'm okay with people being anonymous. I just think even if you're anon, building up some type of reputation tied to your account kind of keeps you in check from doing the totally radical things. Because you don't want to burn that
Hmm.
reputation. You're invested in yourself more, and not just kind of a throwaway personality on the internet. So I think this stuff is really important, to build,
Hmm.
and I really appreciate what you got going on here. It's unique and something that's definitely needed and useful to us as a business and myself as a person as well. So I think it's really cool stuff. What else? Is there anything that we're missing? What's the future for Coordinape and CoLink for 2024? What do you guys have on the roadmap that you want to kind of roll out in the new year?
A lot. our
Oh God.
our small but mighty development team. Shout out to the devs. They're working super hard and just crushing it. But always trying to balance sort of all the things we see that are possible, with kind of putting one foot in front of the other. But certainly a lot of energy around co-links and some of these features that we've been talking about, especially around the ability to give, um, directly in co-links, to really be able to build reputation and be able to appreciate people that you see what they're doing. um, I think it's a pretty compelling idea that if, instead of collecting likes for a tweet, you're actually collecting reputation, that is, algorithmically weighted to the people that are liking. You know, um, every like on Twitter is the same, but the idea that you could have, likes that are affected by the person doing the liking, is interesting. And so working on that to really create more mutuality, and denser network connections, within colinks, I think is pretty exciting. We're also working on, because of the way that the bonding curve works. There's ways that we're looking at some pretty innovative, potential to widen your network, without just the cost going up right along the bonding curve. So ways that you can sort of, essentially, like, fractionalize your links, and it's a pretty cool, sort of using some DeFi concepts, as a way to make your content more affordable, but also a way for people to speculate on who they think is going to attract a lot of attention and do a lot of cool things. So there's a little bit of that fun gamified DeFi degen swirl woven through the professional network. uh, and for the gift circle, really, increasingly talking to Web2 companies and helping them sort of how do we smooth this process, continue to abstract away some of the Web3 rails that I know that later they'll be happy are there, but right now really solving that front and center pain point of how do we get employees more engaged, more connected, more recognized, and more incentivized toward performance. I think iFood offers a really compelling sort of case study for them to keep pursuing that. Um, and the last thing is we're really paying a lot of attention and staying connected to this sort of, I don't know if it's still nascent, it might even be beyond nascent network state, sort of uh, movement and ideas that are forming. I think that we have tools that could be really compelling for people that are interested in exploring. What do network states look like? What is the sort of way that they form? I have a lot of ideas on this, also informed by the network work that we did at Converge. And I think it's going to be really fascinating to see some of these online communities start to coalesce in, I think, more powerful ways, and see ways that network states figure out what is that formula that actually creates a strong core and some staying power. So that's something in 2024 that we're also paying really closely attention to.
Yeah, for the audience, we met at the Network State from Biology that was put on in Amsterdam right before Solana's Breakpoint. It was an amazing event, and we've kind of started to bring that ethos into our business as well. And you really see it, traveling to all these different events all over the world. People are digital nomads and they want to travel. And how do we all work together and coordinate to work from all over the world and things like that? So I do think what you're building is an integral part of that ethos. And from everything you're building, everything we've discussed over this podcast, it feels like you're building a foundation for something brick by brick, and it all comes together to build a beautiful wall when it comes to kind of the ethos of the network state and how people come together and work together in an organization, whether that's a business, Web 2, whether it's Web 3, or even if it's a non for profit or just a way to kind of show appreciation for each other. I really like what you're building in the new digital world. I think it's absolutely amazing. Where can people who are listening go find out more information about yourself, about Coordinape, about CoLink? Where's the best place for folks to go find more information about what you're doing?
Yeah, coordinape.com. So is the place to go check out the gift circle. It's very straightforward. You can be up and running sort of in a few minutes. Similarly, colinks.xyz, and colinks you can go set up there. Right now, you still need an invite code to join. You can ascertain those from your friends that are part of colinks. You can also come to the Coordinate Discord. You can find me on Twitter at Fifth World Zach. I'm happy to send you some invite codes too and get you set up. Yeah, so coordinape.com and colinks.xyz are the best places to go learn more.
I know myself and the team would love some CoLink invites to get set up, and we'd love to start posting content on there for sure. Got to get that out there. And then the
Well,
next
then I'll,
question.
I'll 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 send them to you, and now all your listeners, you can hit up Rand. He'll have a pile of invite codes for you.
Let's go. Thank you, Zach. Much appreciated. And selfishly, because we love live events on our end, any plans? 2024 events. I mean, I know Rare was kind of on the table. Other than that, Eat Denver consensus. Any plans for you to travel coming up, and where are you looking?
Yeah, we'll be at ETH Denver for sure. And uh, so I'm also part of the Meta Cartel Meta Camp core team. we put on events here in Costa Rica, where I live, where we bring all Web3 professionals from sort of all different fields together for a week in Costa Rica to both sort of an unconference where people dive deep on on code and EVM, and also learn to surf and learn to do different sorts of slow down, breath work, connection exercises, in addition to co-working together. So really trying to embody like a more holistic ethos of work hard, play hard, and really forge strong connections. We spend so much time in this URL environment, bringing people together IRL, and really form those connections that then can sustain them as we go back to work online. So we'll be putting on MetaCamp here in May and June, and then do a sort of adjacent thing with the folks from Cabin, the Cabin DAO. We'll be doing an event in Texas, network camp. So we're taking over a summer camp, and we're bringing several folks, really themed around network states and digital collaboration. That'll be happening in October. So those are two things that are circled on the calendar. I have certainly dreams of Dev Connect in Bangkok. I think it's going to be a very worthwhile place to be as well. But yeah, it's really MetaCamp and DAO Camp are things that I'm on the core team of, and really excited about what we've been able to accomplish in previous iterations of those, and excited what we'll do about it this year. And of course, I mean, you got Rare Evo in Vegas in August.
I
Excited about
appreciate
that
it.
one as well.
Thank you. Yeah, those two sound really cool. I've never been to Costa Rica. I have a lot of Web3 friends that are down there, and I need to come visit at some point and see what's going on. And was just in Texas for the North American Blockchain Summit, which was really interesting. There is a large Web3 community building down there in the Houston,
Huge.
Dallas, Austin area. Really a
Hmm.
lot of cool folks. We were able to meet a lot of the Shapeshift and Thorchain folks there coming to Rare Evo. So it was really cool. I'll have to look into both of those for sure, and see if I can stop out. And then we're hosting a big ETH Denver happy hour March 1st with Alchemix, Premia Finance, Sorta Finance, Silo Finance. We're taking over Putt Shack Denver, which is a brand new property. It's owned by the same people as Top Golf. It's like digital putt putt and a bar indoors.
Oh,
So
nice.
all you can eat, like drinks provided and stuff. So I'll shoot you the Luma link for that. If you're going to be in ETH Denver, would love to have you stop out and have you as a guest with all the guys there. So that's really cool, and appreciate the time today, Zach. It's been an amazing podcast. Thank you for kicking off our 2024 with a serious bang here. I really appreciate it, and thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's been awesome. I'll see you in Denver.
Yeah, I'll see you in Denver. Cheers.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.